Everybody, Andrew Cuneo back again. Today I'm going to be taking a white Weenie deck through the standard metagame challenge. I wanted to try this deck after I made that green-white counters video. I said that I wasn't that impressed with Knight-Errant of Eos, and that was my honest reaction, that I wasn't that impressed with it, but I thought maybe it has some hope if it was in a shell more focused around taking advantage of it, so just more 1 and 2 mana cards. I think also the green-white counters deck probably didn't benefit from being mashed up with the Knight-Errant of Eos deck, so maybe there's a better way to build green-white counters without it, but that's not what I'm going to do today. So in addition to Knight-Errant of Eos, I've got some other new cards. I've got Archangel Elspeth. I've gotten to try this in a couple different decks now, and I think it's a pretty good card in any sort of just aggressive deck. It's basically competing with the Wandering Emperor, and I think if you're a dedicated aggressive deck, this is probably better than the Wandering Emperor. Obviously, if you're a mid-range or a more controlling deck, the Wandering Emperor is going to be a lot better. But I have been reasonably impressed with this card. The fact that it gets to the -6 ultimate pretty quickly is nice. The other thing is that with this white Weenie deck, and it was the same thing in like the white-green counters deck, you don't really have a lot of evasive creatures, but the -2 on this, you know, if I make Knight-Errant of Eos flying or I make Adeline flying, that's a big chunk of flying damage. So that's a pretty big swing potentially. Other new cards, I've got 3 Progenitor Exarchs, which this is another one that I've been pretty impressed by. It's at its best in a Phyrexian dedicated deck, but I think it's also good in this deck. And in order to make Knight-Errant of Eos good, you definitely want to be playing a lot of 1 mana cards. So you can potentially play the Knight-Errant of Eos on turn 3 and be convoking it with like 3 or 4 guys. Ideally, and in order to get draws like that, you need to have a lot of 1-drops. So I've got 3 Progenitor Exarchs, 1 Hopeful Initiate, 4 Recruitment Officers, and 3 Skrelvs. That might look like a kind of odd mix, but I think Progenitor Exarch, you don't, if you draw 2 copies, it's certainly in your opening hand, you're going to play 1 on turn 1, and there are obviously better 1-drops for turn 1. So ideally, the Progenitor Exarch is, you know, the last card out of your hand because you're going to be playing it for X's 2, but if you don't have a different 1-drop, you're certainly going to play it on turn 1, I think. So that's why I've got this mix. I think Hopeful Initiate is like the 4th best of these. That's why there's only 1 of them. But there are games when it does do something. So it's really just going to depend on the situation, which of these 1-drops is best. So I've tried to go for a balance. One thing that's nice about this white Weenie deck is I've got, because I can play Ossification because I'm playing basic lands, I've got 4 of those and 2 Laydown Arms, so I have really good removal. I mean, this is something that the white mid-range decks take advantage of as well. So that's a pretty nice thing to have in any sort of more aggressive deck. If you look at the standard decks that are successful, they basically all have to play removal because you can't just be dead to somebody getting Fable in the Mirror Breaker, Blood Tithe Harvester going. And also just games in general when you're on the draw against like Esper Legends or any of the other aggressive decks, you need to have some removal to allow you to catch up, and it needs to be efficient. So it's nice to be able to play all that. My 2-drops are all cards that have been in standard for a while. One thing I would say, though, is Guardian of New Benalia is a pretty strong card that hasn't necessarily had a great home. Even like the blue-white soldiers decks don't tend to play a ton of copies of this because they have other options at 2 that they're more interested in. But in just a straight white deck, you know, you obviously can't play Dennis, or you're not going to play Harbin, which also is a white-blue card. But Guardian of New Benalia is definitely a pretty good card. Looking at the lands, nothing too surprising here. I've got 3 Mishra's Foundries. I'm not playing 4 because you do want, if you draw 3 lands, you definitely want to have 2 white producing lands. And in truth, like the Mishra's Foundry, it's useful, but it's not something you should really feel like you need to have one every game. it's kind of going to be the last thing you do with your hand, and hopefully that 2 damage that you get from attacking with it once is enough to, you know, finish your opponent off, but it's not a core part of your strategy, I would say. Other thing that's a little bit odd is I've got 2 Eiganjos, and I think this is just Eiganjo is a really nice card to have, and if you only have 2 of them, you're not going to wind up having to play both of them as a land in the same game all that often, so you're not going to be hurt by the legendary thing. And I'm playing 24 lands with a somewhat low curve, so there is some danger of flooding out, so you want to get as much value attached to your lands as possible. Another thing to remember is with Guardian of New Benalia, you're frequently just going to be pitching an excess land to give this indestructible at some point in the game. And then there are good ways to take advantage of having a fair amount of lands. Progenitor Exarch, Recruitment Officer, both, you can feed a ton of mana into them. Same thing with Intrepid Adversary. So I don't think you want to skimp on lands in this build. Looking at the sideboard, this is something that I found kind of interesting. A lot of times when you're playing a monocolored deck in Standard, you just don't even have enough cards to fill up your sideboard, because there's just, you have, you know, the 4 to 8 cards you really want, and then with the last slots, you're like, I guess I'll try one of these, or you're putting extra lands in your sideboard, and you've got plans where you're going to change the number of lands in your deck, because the sideboard cards just really aren't at a premium. But with this deck, I actually thought that there was more stuff to fit in the sideboard than I had room for. I've got 2 more copies of Lay Down Arms, which this is obviously going to be matchups where you feel like you need more removal, like a mirror, blue-white soldiers, any sort of deck that's really flooding the board with creatures. Also, I do think that there are times when you're going to want to replace your ossifications with more Lay Down Arms, and that's going to be in spots where you think your opponent would be able to deal with the enchantment. So against a mono-white mid-range deck where they have a lot of Lorans in their main deck, and they might be leaving them in, especially if they saw Ossification in game 1. I'm just going to take out all my Ossifications and just only have Lay Down Arms to get around that. The reason I don't have more Lay Down Arms in my main deck is you don't really want to be giving your opponent 3 life necessarily. 2 Surge of Salvations. This is a card where I could see having a 3rd copy. So this, as probably everyone knows by now, stops Invoke Despair, which is a really big deal. But also just generally, you know, you can protect a creature for 1 mana. That's pretty nice. One other thing that is a subtler thing about this card that might come up in games is if you're trying to alpha strike someone who has brought back an Atraxa, you can, you know, if you're literally killing them that turn, but for the lifelink from the Atraxa, if you play this card, they don't gain the life from the Atraxa. I don't know that I would necessarily want to have this in my deck against Atraxa decks. It's going to depend on the rest of their build. Like if they're playing with red sweepers like Brotherhood's End, definitely you'd be interested in Surge of Salvation. But the more popular builds, I think, are tending to play like more like blue-black, and they aren't even necessarily playing a ton of removal. I don't think that if what you're afraid of is cut down, I don't know that Surge of Salvation is really a very good answer to cut down. Like it can come up occasionally, but trying to hold up mana to respond to a 1-mana spell is not going to work out in your favor generally. I'm down to 1 Invasion of Gobakhan. This card, I still, I wouldn't say I've fully formed my opinion on it. I have had it be good occasionally. I've also had it be bad some of the time. It's a pretty inconsistent card. I have one in my sideboard. This is something I'm going to be boarding in against Atraxa decks and like white mid-range decks. I don't tend to board it in against Grixis decks because I think that there are other better options that you want, like namely Surge of Salvation. You want there. I've got 1 Extraction Specialist. This is mostly against Grixis. This card is really nice with Knight-Errant of Eos because if you're playing against someone who has a lot of removal, it can be hard to get enough bodies in play for the Knight-Errant of Eos to be impactful. But with Extraction Specialist, you know, it gives you 2 bodies back, which is a pretty big deal. So this is another card that if I had more room in my sideboard, I would have more copies of it. 2 Unlicensed Sources. This is obviously for Atraxa decks. It seems like there's been an uptick in people who have built their deck where they're really trying to reanimate Atraxa, or with the new blue-black invasion, they're trying to flip that blue-black invasion of Amonkhet and have it be a copy of Atraxa from a graveyard, which you can stop with Unlicensed Terse, obviously. 4 Brutal Cathars. I think this is probably the most important sideboard card. It's the only one I have 4 of. This is for any sort of mirror match, kind of, you know, against like a white-green tokens deck, against a white-blue soldiers deck, against white Weenie. Any matchup where people are going to struggle somewhat to remove your creatures, which white decks do have a lot of removal, so maybe they aren't going to struggle to remove it. But the thing is, if you're playing a white mirror against someone and they have 4 Brutal Cathars and you don't, you're just at a disadvantage, because a lot of the times the game just comes down to who drew 1 more Brutal Cathar than the other person, because they get to keep their Brutal Cathar in play, so they wind up with the 2-for-1 at the end. You want, in those matchups, you kind of want to just be able to play Brutal Cathar every turn from turn 3 onward. 2 Lorans, that's because against the white mid-range deck, I think this card is quite good. You want something to get their wedding announcement off the board. They're probably going to have Ossification. They might have the Artifact Dragon steal something. So I think that Loran's pretty important in that matchup. 3rd copy of Archangel Elspeth. This is probably the sideboard card I feel the least strongly about. I do think it's really good in the matchups where you want it, which is basically any sort of mid-range deck where you think they're going to have more sweepers after sideboard. I'm going to be happy with it there. In the past, you wouldn't have tried that against Invoke Despair decks necessarily, because the Invoke Despair is already a problem. If it's picking off your 4-mana Planeswalker, that's pretty annoying. But you are boarding in 2 Surge of Salvation, so you're going to be able to get this huge blowout against Invoke Despair some of the time. And also, I think the black decks are just going to be so afraid of Surge of Salvation, they might not even have very many Invoke Despairs in their deck after sideboarding. So having Archangel Elspeth is going to be nice there. This could be Wedding Announcement. Wedding Announcement is probably the most glaring omission from my 75, not having any of them. I could easily see wanting to have some in the sideboard, and maybe one would be in place of Archangel Elspeth. But this is a new card. I'm going to keep playing with it to form a better opinion about it. So that is the deck and sideboard. I'm going to get into some of the matches now. Remember, this is best of 1, so, or it's not best of 1, it's single elimination. So it might be a quick video, it might be a long video. Reasonable hand. I'm facing Kakazan. I think I'm Kumano in this story, just to be clear. I'm going to play this as a 1-drop because I'm going to probably be setting up for Knight-Errant of Eos. Wow, they missed on the second part of the story. They forgot to read the second part. That might have been the best part. So I think if they attack, I'm going to block, and I would pitch a land first and then an Ossification if they had an instant. And if they had 2 instants, I would be forced to pitch probably Archangel Elspeth. That was pretty good. I really continue to think Stoke the Flames is not well suited for these red decks. Just when you never do things that put more than 1 creature into play, Stoke the Flames is just not very efficient. Want another Guardian of New Benalia? Not really. I don't know what I'm hoping for, but I think Guardian of New Benalia is probably like a dead average card. I probably don't need anything to win this game, but I guess my best draws are like more Knight-Errant of Eoses. Now Regatha's being invaded. I'm just going to play Archangel Elspeth this turn. Yeah, Progenitor Exarch seems fine. I guess I should have played the Archangel Elspeth first and made a token. I missed a point of damage this way. Actually, I should have just played these two. Don't think that it can matter, but this was not the right play. All right, Extraction Specialist, Lifelink, good. Surge of Gobakhan, or Surge of Salvation's good. I like Lay Down Arms. What don't I like in this matchup? Don't like Skrelv, and I think I don't like Hopeful Initiate. And I think I'll take one of these Archangel Elspeths out of my deck. It's pretty expensive. I mean, it does give you access to a lifelinker, but it's a lot of mana to get a 1/1 lifelinker. Sand might turn out to be awkward. I obviously need to draw an additional planes to really have... Okay, there's my additional planes. Now I'm probably going to be able to lay down arms, whatever stuff they play. Extraction Specialist is a little bit awkward against the flipped part of Kumano faces Kakazan. I really feel like my opponent probably has not put enough creatures in their deck. This is the second game in a row that this happened. If they have Invasion of Regatha, Surge of Salvation is going to be great. I guess it didn't... The one, they still get the invasion, so I didn't completely obliterate them, but I stopped myself from being obliterated by that thing. What do they get if they flip this? 4/4 prowess. Alright. I'll block. I think I regret my decisions. Although I think I'm still doing fine. What a weird card to have in their mono red deck. No wonder they never have any creatures on turn 2 for their Kumano faces Kakazan. They didn't want to play with creatures because they're playing with sweepers. This gets a lot better if my top card's a land as a play for next turn. Also, they don't have a removal spell for this. It's pretty nice. They had a removal spell for it. So I'm getting hit for non-creature source. Oh, I thought I was going to be hit for 4 there. I was not. I think I'm going to wait 1 turn on the Knight-Errant of Eos. I'll be able to do it, convoke it with 2 or 3 creatures next turn. Convoking it for 1, not that likely to hit hit even 1 thing, much less 2 things. Does that change things? Guess it does. I think I'm going to lay down arms to Foundry if they block with it, which I really think they should have blocked with it. Given that they didn't, I'll lay down arms to Phoenix check. Five land, Progenitor Exarch, Ossification. No, thank you. If I draw more lands, then I'll be able to play Archangel Elspeth. If I draw more spells, then I'll be drawing spells, and I'll potentially be able to play Knight-Errant of Eos. The second Knight-Errant of Eos is about the worst possible draw. I think the only thing that would have been actually worse was the second Archangel Elspeth. I'm gonna save my creature actually. This doesn't finish the Archangel Elspeth off on its own. And with two of the convoke guys in my hand, all my creatures I think are quite valuable. So I can convoke for 3 and play a Guardian of New Benalia afterwards. There's really no benefit to convoking for 4. My deck doesn't have any 4-drops in my deck. So we're going to convoke for 3 instead. And then I'll have 2 good blockers. There is a benefit to convoking for 5 eventually, and then I can find other Knight-Errant of Eoses. Probably given that my deck only has 2 left in it. That's not a play I should prioritize. Oh, so this is... They have big score in their deck. This is like Rakdos midrange with a sub-theme of it reanimating Atraxa, I suppose. I'm not going to double block with the Guardian of New Benalia because they'll just order it first and then I'd be forced to discard a card. There is a minor possibility that they're going to remove this and keep their guy. Yeah, okay. I don't think it was... all the cards in my hand are good, so I don't think it was worth guaranteeing I could kill the goblin by blocking with the Guardian of New Benalia as well. I'm going to be enlisting with the Guardian of New Benalia. I think I want to play an Archangel Elspeth this turn as well. So maybe I'm not going to be enlisting with the Guardian of New Benalia. Yeah, what if instead we do this, this, and that. Maybe they're actually Grixis and they just bricked on blue lands for a while. No, there's no way they're Grixis. They wouldn't have Graveyard Trespasser and Phyrexian Dragon Engine if they were. They would have Corpse Appraisers. It's moderately effective. Invoke Despair. So what's the plan? There's no real point to using Skrelv proactively. Whatever I Skrelv will just get Phyrexian Dragon Engined. Is there a benefit to playing Intrepid Adversary? So let's say they block there. Block there. I think 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I guess they would block there. So they block that, that, and that, and they take 4. They would take 14, I think. Basically, if I can, I want them to be forced to trade off the Reflection of Kiki-Jiki this turn. I guess the other thing is now that I've got this Lord, they can't even get the Adeline off the board. They're forced to just chump it. They do get to eat this Intrepid Adversary for free, but this one isn't even the one that's buffing my creatures. Yeah, that block wasn't it. This is an obvious job for Surge of Salvation. I think I want my third Archangel Elspeth here. Question is, what don't I want? I think even though Intrepid Adversary was kind of good that game, it's generally not that good in this matchup. I'm never sure how much removal I want against these red-black decks in the post-board games. I think I'm going to just leave it at my baseline 6. Actually, I do want Extraction Specialist. I don't think I want any of these other cards. So what are we going to be extracting? Not an Intrepid Adversary. I guess I'll play this guy as a 1/2. It's going to be a body that I can use to enlist on turn 3, which is something I'll certainly be interested in doing. Guess I'm also going to get a point of damage from it. Nice to get a point of damage. I could just pitch, if they tried to kill this, I could pitch the Progenitor Exarch, just have something I can get back with Extraction Specialist. I think I'm not going to do that, though. Instead, I'm going to probably be playing Progenitor Exarch on 2 this turn. I definitely don't want the land. Do I want another Progenitor Exarch? Maybe I do want the land. I get to 5 mana and then I've got 2 Progenitor Exarchs. That might actually be worth it. Next turn I can play Archangel Elspeth, obviously. They're going to have a 1-turn window because they were on the play where they could invoke to spare me. To get the Archangel Elspeth off the board, and I won't have access to Surge of Salvation. Karn Silex, that's not very nice. This is exile or destroy. Destroy. I don't even really want to play Archangel Elspeth this turn. I suppose I'm just attacking and enlisting. Definitely don't want Ossification. I think I'm actually going to bottom this land too. Eventually I'll hit a 5th land and this Progenitor Exarch will get played for 2, but my plan here is to try to force them to use the Silex with what's in play. And then probably play Archangel Elspeth the turn after. I think I'll also be saving the Guardian of New Benalia, probably with pitching this Progenitor Exarch. Oh, that's interesting. So, prevent all damage that that black or red sources would deal to creatures you control this turn. So this thing didn't have to be a creature to get that shield. Which, if you read the cards, that makes sense, but I wouldn't have necessarily thought it would work that way. They didn't have a 4th land. So I'm going to hope they don't have a 4th land for next turn, but even if they do, I'm putting counters on the Guardian of New Benalia, which I will be pitching a card to save. So I'm still going to get the benefit from the counters. I continue to not want Ossification against someone who has Karn Silex. This is not a good hand. This hand on the play. Alright, I mean, for a 5-card hand, this is fine. 5-card hand, you don't have a ton of hope, usually. This is no different. This is probably white-green Infect, but it could be like a Phyrexian tribal deck. It appears to be white-green Infect. I don't know what I need, but it's not lands. That much I do know. I have access to 2 colorless creatures now, so the Skrelv just pushing through damage isn't going to happen. Which is pretty nice. They can do it this turn. Whoa, got a black-green land. Are there any black toxic creatures you would play? That thing's pretty annoying. I thought I was doing good, but that was when I thought I would have this Guardian of Benalia hitting them for 4 every turn. This doesn't seem like a very good trade for the opponent. My Progenitor Exarch for their Jawbone Duelist. Oh, this is maybe worth it, though. Just dealing 2. That makes sense. There's a window now where I could have potentially drawn a removal spell to get the Annex Sentry off the board. But I didn't have a removal. I'm just going to activate Recruitment Officer rather than get Skrelv into play. I'm suspecting there aren't too many things I'd want to Skrelv. Oh, this also got them to toxic because Skrelv gave additional toxifying. Yeah. That was way worse for me than I thought it was going to be. But wait, they just tapped them all. So now they don't have a good attack. They didn't tap them all. And I wanted to animate that with Progenitor Exarch. It was a disaster all along. Well, I managed to kill the Jawbone Duelist, but I don't think I'm going to be able to beat their token generation. Oh, they have another Jawbone Duelist? I just used like my whole board to get one off the board and you had more? Ooh. A black creature's entered the game. This is obviously a Brutal Cathar matchup. It's also a Loran matchup. And a Lay Down Arms matchup. What don't I want? I think I don't want Skrelv. I think I don't want Archangel Elspeth. And I don't want Intrepid Adversaries. It's a pretty good hand. I think I'm going to play Thalia turn 2. I would really like to be able to get a counter on this Hopeful Initiate. So I don't think I would be enlisting. That's fine. So next turn, I do have the option. I could animate my Mishra's Foundry and list with it. And attack with both. Does that work? I don't think it would trigger the training. Those are both quite good. I think we're going to want the Lay Down Arms first, though. Especially because if I cast the Knight-Errant of Eos, obviously I lose the Lay Down Arms off the top of my deck. I'm not sure I understand why is this card in their deck. They seem interested in doing toxic things, but then they just have a random 3-drop that doesn't do toxic things. I really hope they don't have sweepers in their deck somehow. Oh, they have Grafted Butcher in their deck. I see. It's like a hybrid of a Phyrexian tribal deck and a toxic deck. Interesting. I'll trade off one of my Guardian of New Benalias for 4 damage. I am going to play the Knight-Errant of Eos next turn, so I'm going to bottom Ossification because I can just get more cards that would be hits for the Knight-Errant of Eos. Now I've got 3 creatures for the Knight-Errant of Eos, which is the sweet spot for my deck. Down to 2 creatures. 2 creatures not as nice, but still pretty nice. You need to be careful if you're auto-casting this thing and you have Mishra's Foundry in play. Arena won't anticipate that you could potentially be getting a 1 white creature, so they'll just be like, we'll just tap you'll leave your Mishra's Foundry up because the white mana is obviously useless. It's a bloated Contaminator. It was a bloated Contaminator. That was a pretty good draw. I don't know if I'm going to need it, but now I can use the Hopeful Initiate to free my Guardian of New Benalia from confinement. This isn't the highest priority target in the world, but I think it's still worth doing. Especially because I was planning on playing Thalia the next turn, which makes it turns it into a 2-mana spell, so I'm not even going to be able to do 3 mana. I just want to Brutal Cathar that. It's possible they don't have a spell to play next turn, and if they don't have a spell, this will flip, and then I can immediately flip it again, and I get another token. Come on, no spell. Oh, they had a Jawbone Duelist. My plan was foiled. Now they're down to only 1 card in hand, so maybe they won't have a spell for next turn. And we get to flip the Brutal Cathar and eat another token. 2 tokens a turn is no joke. They'll get to the point where they're lifelinking fairly soon, and then things get ugly. Do I want to kill one of the hives? I think I do. I should definitely just attack with everything. If they have a removal spell, it's really bad for me. Maybe they don't, though. Assuming they attack with everything, I think I'm just going to trade with Bloated Contaminator. And continue to be hopeful that they don't have a spell so the Brutal Cathars can start flipping. Bloated Processor. That's scary-ish. It also means I should definitely block the Bloated Contaminator. I was already going to block the Bloated Contaminator, but now I don't even get full value from trying to eat a token because it's just going to be fed to the Bloated Processor. I think I would like to enlist this turn. And I want to attack with that as well. I want an Ossification. I guess that's fine. Gross. That was gross. So if I kill one of the tokens, I'm going to be taking 8 damage and 4 infect, so I'll be at 8 infect. Yeah, the problem is if to block more aggressively, I need to get my Brutal Cathar involved in the blocking, and then they get the Bloated Processor, and I think that that makes it really hard for me to win. They don't draw another Grafted Butcher. Billy's Skull Dweller. Acceptable. I definitely need these things to start flipping. So from their perspective, I'm dead if they just go for it. I have Eiganjo, so it kind of works out for me. One drop. The Progenitor Exarch would be nice, but I'm going to have to play my 1-drop as a 1-drop this turn. Is there any merit to attacking this turn? So I attack with this one guy. I guess they would just block with the Bloated Processor, so yeah, that doesn't make a ton of sense. Being overrun by the sewers. So again, it should look like they can kill me if they attack. So they might want to do that. They still did not want to do that. So I'm going to get 2 more flips, meaning they would have 8 attackers, and I need 7 blockers. I'm going to be playing 2 more. I think I can afford to attack with both my Brutal Cathars. If they have a spell in their hand, this could obviously go badly, but I think if they had a spell in their hand, they would have cast it on their turn probably. They can get a big life swing by attacking into me. I don't think it would be enough. This is kind of a sad hand in that it's a bunch of my creatures that are better if I can pump a lot of mana into them. I'm still going to play them because I want to get creatures into play for these Knight-Errant of Eos. I guess next turn I'm probably going to play this Ossification. Actually, no, I'm not going to play that Ossification. If they don't have Rafine this turn, an okay shape. Adeline's also not ideal. Adeline's is more manageable than Rafine would have been, though. Come on, some good stuff. Show me the good stuff. Show me the good stuff. It wasn't really that good. They going for unblockable. All right. So now I should have blocked there. That was bad. Dennis, where you been, Dennis? I'm interested in attacking my opponent. I think I can wait 1 turn. I think maybe I should have started out by attacking with the Knight-Errant of Eos. I'm going to convoke this one for 5, but I can also afford to make an attack. So it's probably worth just attacking first so they don't really get to see how the rest of my turn is going to play out before they decide what to do. They're going to destroy one of my lands with Urtai. I don't think that's going to function the way they had hoped. I see. This is going to be a double block with Dennis and Urtai. That's pretty good for them. Do I want to kill Dennis or kill Urtai? I think I'm just going to kill Urtai. Like, eventually I have to get through the Dennis, but I don't want them necessarily to just be able to play the backside of Dennis on their turn. Wait, why didn't it convoke more of my guys? The auto-tapping algorithm with this thing almost never does what I want. I didn't actually miss out on anything, though. I guess it looked ahead and knew that I only needed to do it for 2 to get the only creature I was going to hit. I think we're getting to the stage of the game where my recruitment officers are going to start doing something. Wow, that is a good draw. Oh, they're going to Takanuma Urtai. Okay. I see what you're working with, opponent. Oh. They're forcing me to spend more mana on it first. I think I can get away with just doing that and they'll still be forced to Urtai it. There's not a whole lot of point in attacking. They're pretty much priced into casting the Urtai that turn, even if I don't attack. And if I attack, I would again just be jamming my Knight-Errant of Eos into Urtai to make the same trade I made the turn before, which wasn't that great of a trade. Uh-oh. Rafine, I'm not excited to see you. I think these two little guys together are worse than the Knight-Errant of Eos. I'm in a lot of trouble with this. I needed like one. I needed them to not have anything for 1 or 2 turns, and I would have been able to probably get something started. At this point, though, it's looking rough. I want to attack with the Knight-Errant of Eos this turn, and I don't want to play Adeline first because they'll just block the 1/1 with Dennis and gain a life, making my attack less impactful than I had hoped for. Still not really impactful enough. How many Intrepid Adversaries do I have left in my deck? Only 1. I think I'm going to need to draw an Intrepid Adversary or a Archangel Elspeth to get through this board. What are they? They're getting back to their Adeline. Okay. don't think there's any creatures I could find off of Recruitment Officer that would change my attack, so I'm not going to do that first. To back up Adeline. I need this Foundry potentially to block their Adeline. Alright, Shieldred, that's going to do it. Definitely need more removal. I don't really love Archangel Elspeth in this matchup, because Rafine flying over and killing it is not what I'm hoping to have happen. Hopeful Initiate doesn't really do very much. And I think this is another matchup where Skrelv just doesn't do that much. They're going to be boarding in some removal, but they're really not going to have that much. And it doesn't even protect against it doesn't protect against their land-based removal. Like in the Esper Legends deck, a lot of their interaction comes from Eiganjo and Otawara, which Skrelv does not save you against. I guess I'm going to have at least one Skrelv over a Thalia. Thalia is also kind of lackluster. Maybe I'll have two Skrelvs and one Thalia. I did just board in. Well, I boarded up to 8 non-creature spells. That's probably more than they're going to have in their deck. Not a fast draw, but a lot of interaction. And some value, potentially. Let's have some sound. I'm gonna brutalize this Dennis. I'm gonna brutalize this Dennis as well. No, thank you. I would not like to lay down arms my Brutal Cathar to give him back a Dennis. I don't really understand why you would put this card in your deck. I did try it at one point and I was not impressed. That said, I'm probably going to lay down arms it. Rafine is here. What's the plan of attack? I think I'm going to play Adeline. Is it even worth putting the Brutal Cathars in combat? I don't think so. Like if they have Eiganjo and they Eiganjo a Brutal Cathar, it's a lot of risk for not a lot of reward. The reward being 2 damage. I think I can do better than a Guardian of New Benalia. I would like another removal spell, probably. Or another Knight-Errant of Eos. I like it. Naked Takenuma. Oh, they hit a Dennis? Same attack as last time. Well, I guess I'm adding the Adeline. It was summoning sick last time. Scry something to the top to find with this Recruitment Officer. Mishra's Foundries are not it. I'm going to hold this Plains for now in case I need to save Guardian of New Benalia. I think the scariest card for them to have right now would be Gix's Command, which would be pretty scary, or pretty deadly. They're on a mulligan. This is not the best hand in the world, but I think it's definitely keepable. I did not want to see another land. I guess I'll just Brutal Cathar that. Wouldn't be surprised if they have a removal spell for the Brutal Cathar. They did not. Cut down would be a little bit annoying, but I can tell they don't have it because they're not getting priority. All right. I'm ahead on board. I've got 2 Eiganjos in my hand. I think that's pretty good. The only scary thing would be Gix's Command at this point. I'm not that scared of Gix. I'm more scared of his command. It must feel horrible if you're the Esper Legends player to get your own creatures Eiganjo'd for once, to not be the person who's Eiganjoing. Guess I could have gotten in on the action with my Mishra's Foundry. I really should have played the Skrelv pre-combat. I guess if they block, I could animate Mishra's Foundry. How many stupid things do I want to pay for? I'm going to have 2 mana left over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that was kind of rude. I think normally it would be bad that I drew this many lands, but somehow it's somewhat effective against their silly Elesh Norn that they have. I don't think I need to do any math. I think they're just dead. Was that Elspeth, that Elesh Norn, supposed to be a sideboard card against mono red, you think? I really didn't really get what the idea behind that one was. Maybe it was just something they're trying because they're a Legends deck and it's a new legend in their colors. This is a Grixis gamer. It's maybe another Esper Legends gamer. It is. Dennis is back. Always happy to see Dennis. Not really. So I definitely want to play the Recruitment Officer. I don't think there's a point to playing the Progenitor Exarch, because as we've established, I don't have any 4-drops to find. Starts like this are the reason that people put, well, it's the reason that I've put Knight-Errant of Eos in my deck, excuse me. Do I want Thalia or do I want Recruitment Officer number 2? I think I just want Recruitment Officer number 2. Thalia doesn't do very much against the Esper Legends deck, and this way, I guess I'm not going to play the Recruitment Officer next turn either. Well, I will. No, if I don't draw a land, I'm going to play Progenitor Exarch and incubate. If I do draw a land, I'm just going to play Intrepid Adversary. Right? Yeah. And I think I will enlist the Recruitment Officer. And if they want to swing into me with Dennis to start getting some counters, that's fine. I am actually, this is going to be a spot where I leave Skrelv up to protect the Intrepid Adversary potentially. I will need to be careful though, because like I said, they can just Otawara it through a Skrelv. It's not perfect protection. If they want to attack with the Dennis and get counters on it, they're going to have a hard time blocking next turn. And they don't even know about the second Intrepid Adversary that's going to be coming in hot next turn. I kept the land because my next turn's probably going to be Intrepid Adversary, give it one counter, play Recruitment Officer. It's a big Dennis. I think they might be dead. Guess we should do some math. They can block the biggest thing. Yeah. Are they just straight up dead even without anything? Yeah. They were dead even without this Intrepid Adversary. I'll just show them how dead they truly were. going to go with the same sideboard plan as last time. The one thing about how I'm sideboarding is, by having all these Brutal Cathars in my deck, I am really making myself worse against Gix's command. My last opponent didn't play any of Gix's commands, or didn't cast any in the course of the game. I think I was maybe mis-sideboarding, cutting one of the Skrelvs and keeping a Thalia. I think maybe Skrelv is better. It's certainly better with my Knight-Errant of Eos draws. I think if I was on the play, I would play turn 1 Recruitment Officer, but because I'm on the draw, I'm going to play turn 1 Skrelv. The idea being that probably whichever of these 1-drops I play is not actually going to get to attack for damage on turn 2, because they could have Dennis or Thalia, or, well, they could have anything. As it turns out, I guess I missed a damage. They probably have Go for the Throat in their hand. The way that it paused there and then they didn't cast anything. Oh no, the dreaded double Eiganjo draw. Wedding Announcement's a pretty effective sideboard card against my deck. I'm not happy to see that one. Am I so unhappy that I'm actually going to just lay down Arms the token? I think I am. This way, next turn, I can Brutal Cathar the token, lay down Arms, whatever they play. I guess if they play a 4-mana card, I'm going to have to Brutal Cathar it. If they play a Wedding Announcement, that's kind of obnoxious. Suppose change of tactics is in order. Game's going to be pretty hard to win. There's just 2 Wedding Announcements. I guess Intrepid Adversary is a start. I think if we go to game 3, I'm going to cut a Skrelv for a Loran. Maybe 2 even. If they probably have 4 Skrelvs in their deck, and if they have 4 Skrelvs for Wedding Announcements, Loran seems kind of appealing. That was the Go for the Throat that I kind of knew they had. Turns out they had 2. Skrelv was good this game. For sure. Probably it wasn't good enough. But we'll have to see. I want that ossification. Yes. I'm going to probably have an opportunity to opt out of the ossification next turn, because if it looks like it's not going to be good, I should be getting another Scry 2 next turn. Ossification's looking pretty good. Because I can't lay down arms the Shieldred, I don't have enough planes. We'll float a backup ossification again, same thing as last turn. If they had had Otawara or Eiganjo there, it would have been very sad for me. I think my situation is kind of dire, though, so I need to be somewhat aggressive in how I decide to do things. All right, so the first ossification is getting fed to a Plaza of Harmonies. This thing gives indestructible, so I want to attack first. I don't want to draw Progenitor Exarch when I only have 4 mana. It's like a not quite as good Blade Splicer. I like that my opponent seems to just have a bunch of lands. That was it? That was all they had for me? I guess I did have lethal if I attacked all out. I don't think I was going to attack with the Skrelv. Kind of awkward that I drew 2 Skrelvs as 2 of my 1-drops in this hand, because I really need to get a bunch of 1-drops in play to get the Knight-Errant of Eos working. I'll keep tapping the Skrelv in the hopes that it baits my opponent into killing it. Oh no. That was not a good draw. If they go Fable and I draw a land, I'll still be in okay shape. If they go Fable and I draw another bad card, it's not going to be good. hand was so close to being good, but I think it's not going to be good enough now. They're at a pretty high life total, and they're about to get a Reflection of Kiki Jiki online, which makes it pretty hard for my deck to win. I need to have more initial pressure to kind of punch through a Fable. I think I'll throw away a Knight-Errant of Eos. I don't know that there's a world where I need to cast 3 of them. And I think I'm about to be Invoked Despaired, which I will be sacrificing the Skrelv to Invoke Despair. Oh, it's a Shieldred. Also a problem. If they have nothing and somehow don't manage to find anything off of their blood and the many lands in their deck that cycle, maybe I can fight through this. Realistically, I'm not going to win this game. But we can keep fighting, I guess. I would probably have to deal 40 damage to kill them through this Shieldred. They didn't have Invoke Despair before. I think they're probably going to have it now. This would have been a really good spot to have lay down arms. Is there any way to win this game? I don't think so. Alright, so this is a matchup where I want more lay down arms, less ossifications. Definitely want Surge of Salvation, definitely want Distraction Specialist. I think I want Archangel Elspeth. Maybe this card is not so good against Hidetsugo and Kairi, and it's not a good sideboard card here. It's possible Wedding Announcement would be better. In this matchup, I don't want Hopeful Initiation. I'm going to trim 2 ossifications. And I think I'm going to trim Intrepid Adversaries here. Your creatures die in so many ways in this matchup that it makes Intrepid Adversary kind of expensive and unreliable. That's why I'm not a huge fan of it here. 1 lander on the play. Ooh. I think I would 100% keep this hand on the draw. I'm not going to keep it on the play, though. Looks a lot better. I think I need to keep all my lands because of the double Knight-Errant of Eos situation. I guess I could have kept Lay Down Arms and bottom to Knight-Errant of Eos, but I do like the Knight-Errant of Eos a lot in this matchup, so I'm not enthusiastic about doing that. Come on, one drop, one drop, one drop, one drop. That's not the kind of one drop I wanted. I'm going to convoke this for 3. I'm going to give up 4 damage for the chance of hitting 3 drops. And I should have tapped my mana on my own. I failed to hit 3 drops. I hit two Skrelvs instead. Not ideal. I guess the Skrelvs are somewhat useful in that at worst they're things I can pitch to Guardian of New Benalia. Okay, that's going to be a very good target for lay down arms. It's not a good target for lay down arms. I don't have enough planes. Ooh. I really hope they didn't put Gix's command on top of their deck. If they did, I'm going to be sad. Why did I do that? I think that was going to work. This is a lot of Hidetsugu and Kaiuris to have to fight through. I would have actually won this game if that Mishra's Foundry had been a plane, so I could have laid down arms the first hit at Sugo and Kairi. Corpse has been appraised. It's been found lacking. That was a good draw, at least. That could have gone better. I think my conclusion from having played this matchup some more is I think that I should have some wedding announcements. I'm not wild about having them as a sideboard card against... Whoa! We have a Riveteer's Requisitioner's setting. I'm not wild about boarding Wedding Announcement in against the mono white deck, like the mono white mid-range deck, but I think it would be okay-ish. Am I finally going to get to win a game with Progenitor Exarch? Maybe. I'm going to guess they probably board it out and make disappear. I'm certainly not going to play around it, but it's also a card that I think you would tend to take out, certainly on the draw against an aggressive white deck. Come on, no Sheoldred. I think I lose if they have Sheoldred. I can beat Darkslick Shores. I can beat it bad. Do I need to play this? Should I play it? I guess I should have played it, and given that I should have played it before I started spending my mana. Always better to plan out your turn before you start taking actions. Advice that I've never followed. I think I was pretty happy with how my deck was configured there. I might have too many Mishra's Foundries in my deck. I mean, definitely now that I drew the second one, it feels like I've got too many. But in these games where I draw two laydown arms, it's certainly kind of annoying. Should I ossify this? I guess. I'll probably wind up lay down armsing a goblin token from a Fable this turn. That's my guess, yeah. It's so likely if I play the Adeline that it just dies. And also it would only be a 1/4, so I can't even block the goblin. I'd be giving them at a minimum of one free treasure if I play the Adeline that turn. Gonna need to find another plains so that I can lay down arms, the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. There's my plains. I think they're at too high of a life total to just go after the Corpse Appraiser this turn with lay down arms. It's so likely that they just find a second thing to start kiki-jikiing, which they've already found one. Yikes. They just put 2 Blood Tithe Harvesters in the yard, indicating whatever card they kept was better than Blood Tithe Harvester when they had a Reflection of Kiki-Jiki in play that was about to be active. This is going to be a hard one to win. I thought the last game was going to be a hard one to win too, and I won it. So maybe it's not completely without hope. It seems pretty doomed though. Going to 11 here. I got 2 creatures at least. I have that going for me. One of them's a pretty useless Skrelv. So what went wrong this game? I was on the draw, and they had a 1-mana removal spell, basically. 1-mana removal spell into 2-drop that I interacted with, which was just because I didn't really have anything else I could do. And then they had Fable. So like our turn 1 and turn 2 mana, we just traded with each other. It's always cool when you kill your opponent by killing your own Hidetsugu. What was the spell? It was a Brotherhood's End. That's what killed me. But anyway, if you trade card and mana with your opponent on turns 1 and 2, and then they play Fable on turn 3, you're almost always going to lose. And there's nothing you can do in a white deck to get out of that. All right, respectable run though. This was my, I think, 2nd or 3rd attempt with this deck, so it's not an amazing deck, but it is pretty good. I think that going forward, I would probably make room for maybe 2 wedding announcements in the sideboard. Maybe over the Extraction Specialist and the 2nd Archangel Elspeth. Like cutting those 2 for 2 wedding announcements. And that would board them in against Grixis and like mono white. Well, I hope you enjoyed the deck, and I will see you next time.